Let's pick up where we left off. In part 1, we uncovered the emotional trap many smart kids fall into, the praise that turns into a prison, the identity built on effortlessness, and how avoiding discomfort leads to isolation. But that's just the beginning. Because if you've made it this far in life feeling disconnected, stuck, or like you're just performing the role of someone who has it all together, then chances are there are still deeper layers holding you back. So today, we're diving deeper. Why do smart kids, despite their potential, end up living small lives? Why do they struggle with motivation, procrastination, relationships, and self-worth, even when they know better? Well, here's a brutal truth we don't talk about enough. Knowing isn't the same as doing. You can be the smartest person in the room, but intelligence doesn't protect you from self-sabotage. In fact, it often fuels it, because the smarter you are, the better you are at building arguments that justify staying the same. You tell yourself, I just need more time. I'm waiting for the right moment. I'll fix this when I'm less tired, less stressed, more prepared. But the truth? You're scared. Not because you're weak, but because you're finally facing a truth that logic alone can't fix. You're emotionally underdeveloped. And that's not your fault. Let's talk about emotional immaturity, a silent epidemic among high-performing kids. If your childhood was built around being praised for your brain, chances are nobody taught you how to feel your feelings. You were rewarded for solving problems, not for expressing vulnerability. So what did you do? You learned to repress emotions instead of processing them. You intellectualized everything, thinking your way out of pain, logicking your way around conflict, analyzing instead of feeling. And that strategy worked on it for a while, until it didn't. Because emotions don't disappear just because you ignore them. They just go underground. They become tension in your body, anxiety in your chest, numbness in your relationships. Eventually they resurface as burnout, panic, depression, or that aching sense of, I don't even know who I am anymore. Let that sink in. Many gifted kids grow into adults with high IQs but low emotional bandwidth. You know how to write a thesis, but you panic when someone asks how you feel. You can debate politics for hours, but can't say, I'm hurt, without choking up. And it gets worse. Because the smarter you are, the more convincing your internal narratives become. You rationalize every missed opportunity, every avoidance, every broken connection. You tell yourself, I'm just independent, when the truth is, you're terrified of being seen. You say, I work better alone, but deep down, you don't know how to ask for help without feeling like a burden. And so your world gets smaller, lonelier, more controlled. Here's what no one tells you. Intelligence without emotional courage becomes a cage. So how do we break out of it? It starts with a radical reframe. Stop trying to be impressive. Start trying to be alive. Forget about mastering your career, your relationships, or your potential. Focus instead on experiencing your life again. Let yourself feel messy things. Grief, shame, jealousy, longing. Yes, they're uncomfortable, but they're also real. And real is what heals. Because once you start telling the truth, your truth, you'll start connecting. Not with everyone, but with people who matter. Let me tell you a story. There's a man named Darren, valedictorian, MIT graduate, built a 6-figure startup before 30, and yet, at 32, he found himself sobbing in his car after a team meeting, not because anyone was cruel, but because he realized he had no real friendships. Everything in his life was transactional, performative. And that day, he made a decision. He started therapy, not because he was broken, but because he was tired of pretending not to be. And you know what his therapist said? Well, you don't need to figure yourself out. You need to feel yourself out. That hit him like a brick. So he started small. He stopped skipping hard conversations. He started admitting when he didn't know. He practiced saying, I need help, without apologizing for it. It didn't fix everything, but it changed everything. Because growth doesn't come from knowing. It comes from experiencing. And yes, you'll stumble. You'll overshare. You'll cry at the wrong time. You'll say things and instantly regret them. But here's the twist. Those are the very moments that make you human, that make connection possible. Because people don't bond over perfection. They bond over vulnerability. So if you're wondering where to begin, start with this. Admit something you've been hiding. Let yourself be confused without rushing to fix it. Join something you're bad at. Cry, and don't explain it. Tell someone you miss them. Be average at something, just for the joy of doing it. Because healing doesn't happen when you're the smartest person in the room. It happens when you're the most real. So let this be your invitation. Not to prove yourself, but to find yourself. Not to be impressive, but to be seen. Not to be the best, just to be present. Because the world doesn't need another genius on autopilot. It needs you, with all your flaws, your fears, and your fierce longing to be whole again. But maybe you're wondering, what if it's too late? What if I've missed too many chances? What if I've already built my whole life on this fragile image, and now I don't know how to be anything else? Then hear this. It's not too late. Because the human brain doesn't stop growing at 25. It doesn't close the door on new stories. You are not a finished product. You're a work in progress. Still capable of change. Still capable of becoming more than what you've been. But it takes something that smart kids often resist. Surrender. Not surrendering to defeat, but surrendering to reality, to your feelings, to the possibility that you don't have all the answers, to the terrifying truth that being smart doesn't make you invincible, and never did. That's where real growth begins. Let me explain why this is so hard for you. See, the smart kid was rewarded for control over information, control over outcomes, control over how others perceived them. But emotional healing, it requires giving up control. You can't control how people respond when you open up. You can't control whether your vulnerability is met with warmth or silence. You can't control whether healing happens fast, or slowly, or painfully. And that's what makes it feel dangerous. But the irony is, the moment you release that need for control, you finally access something deeper. Freedom. Freedom to feel. Freedom to connect. Freedom to live without performing. And when you stop performing, people finally meet the real you. Not the polished version, not the smart mask. You, and maybe for the first time, you feel seen. So here's another truth you might need to hear. You're not broken. You're not defective. You're not doomed to live a lonely, disconnected life. But you do need to let go of who you were taught to be. The A+ student, the golden child, the problem solver, the high achiever. That identity served a purpose. It helped you survive. But it's not helping you live. Living, truly living, it happens when you allow yourself to be messy, unpredictable, and unfinished. You stop chasing perfection, and you start chasing experiences. You don't just understand what it means to be human, you become it. And that, more than any degree or award or label, is what will bring you peace. Here's one more shift that can change everything. Start celebrating effort, not outcome. Start telling yourself, I'm proud I tried. Not, I'm proud because I won. Celebrate when you show up, even when you're anxious. Celebrate when you speak up, even if your voice shakes. Celebrate when you admit you're lost, instead of faking certainty. Because this, right here, is the emotional maturity you were never taught. And you're learning it now. You're learning to walk back into life with your heart open, even when it's scary. You're learning to connect, not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. You're learning to say, I matter, even when I'm not perfect. I belong, even when I don't have all the answers. I am enough, even when I feel behind. And yes, some days will feel like failure. You'll retreat, you'll overthink, you'll fall back into old habits. But don't mistake relapse for ruin. Healing is a spiral, not a straight line. You'll loop back to familiar pain, but with new eyes, new tools, new strength, because now you know what's happening. And more importantly, you know what to do with it. You don't spiral alone anymore. You name it, you own it, you speak it out loud, and when you do, the shame begins to dissolve. Because shame thrives in silence, but it dies in connection. And that's the final lesson smart kids need most. You don't need to be perfect to be loved. You just need to be honest. So if any of this hit home, don't just scroll past it. Let it sink in. You're not alone, and you're not broken. You're just finally waking up to what you really need. And if this helped even a little, subscribe to Deep Dive Psychology and check out our other videos. They're made for minds like yours. See you in the next one.